everybody. My name is Christina Mattison Ebert, and I came into the program as an illustrator and designer 2.5 years ago, and I'm leaving, I think, more as a multimedia artist, writer, and director, and so this presentation is going to take you through that journey of going from one thing and kind of evolving into another over time, and go over some of the things that are crucial and are repeating in my work. I do want to make a caveat that art is a second career for me, doing it professionally at least. I'm a freelance illustrator and designer right now, and there was about a period of a decade in my life where I was in emergency medical services. I was a paramedic, and later a healthcare administrator, and came back to art after that. And that's a whole other presentation. I'm not going to go into that here, but it does play a role, especially when I get to my thesis work. So it has influenced my work, but I just wanted to put that out there. So I want to start with early influences. We had an instructor named Benjamin Mara, and last summer he gave us an interesting quote that has stuck with me, and it was, paraphrasing, as an artist, I feel like I'm constantly trying to get back to that person I was when I was like 12 or 13 years old. And I feel like through this program, and especially with me after having been gone from art for 10 years, that I have been trying to get back to that creative person I was when I was that age. And I think at that point, like our creative selves are a lot more uninhibited, and we kind of get that beaten out of us over time through life. And so at that age, I grew up kind of in the golden age of hip hop, and a lot of that culture and that music has fed into my work. The things that repeat in my work that you'll see throughout this presentation are a lot of color. I don't shy away from bright colors. Movement, I really like focusing on real people, and especially in urban environments in my work. And one of my earliest influences was, if you remember the show In Living Color, if you also grew up in the 90s, it was a sketch comedy show. And I'm sharing this because the opening credit sequence is like fantastic, and it really is a good introduction to what you'll see come up later in my work. This is just a short clip.
You know what I'm saying? You walk on the moon, float like a balloon. You see, it's never too late and it's never too soon. Take it from me, it's alright to be in living color.
So that's the clip. It's a good warm-up for all these presentations, I think. I used to dance around my living room to that song when I was young. So going forward into my work, as I got older, I started to do some figure drawing work, and this is some examples. And one of the themes you see repeating in my work is people, and just the human body and people where they are in the world. So I had some training growing up of classical figure drawing. These are some examples of charcoal drawings that I did, and when you mix this training with the influence, like the hip hop culture influence, the kind of the color, the movement, the motion, my work started to evolve into something more like this, which is a little bit more painterly, but I started to get more free and exaggerated with my figures, but the same subject matter really motivated me. People, urban environments, color, movement, and diversity is also a very big piece of my work. It got a little bit more, as I got a little bit more training and kind of moved into illustration, the color and the exaggeration, everything kind of continued to grow. This is an oil pastel piece I did, and skip ahead those 10 years I told you about. I redid these characters, and I'm showing this because this is a point where I started to mix media together. So this drawing is made out of ink, charcoal, chalk pastel, digital media, a whole bunch of things. And this was a point where I really realized that I don't just do one thing. I like to take many disparate things and kind of smash them together. is true of the music that I like, because music, again, is a recurring theme in my work. I like taking things that seem like they don't really belong together and trying to find ways to smash them together, hopefully ending up with something somewhat elegant at the end of it. So this is a really much more recent piece that I did, and I did this for an illustration class I was taking. And when I finished this piece, I really thought, this is the piece that when I show it to people, this is my artistic voice. Like this is all of the things that are important to me in my artwork. Diversity. I also tend to focus a lot on having representations of women in my work, so it's all female characters. There's a lot of, music with the boombox, and there's mixed media. I used ink, charcoal, photography even, and some of my own cut paper and pattern designs. I just kind of put everything into this, and this really represented who I was at that moment. And luckily, some other people enjoyed that, because the Baltimore City paper, which is an independent newspaper, commissioned me to do the cover of their Sizzlin' Summer Guide for this year. And they basically asked me, like, can you do that same exact thing, but do it, to our specs and make it, specific as possible to Baltimore, which is where I grew up in Maryland, and so it was really an honor to do something that was Maryland-based. But this was nice. This was a turning point for me, too, because I realized that, like, other people saw, like, the passion that I had for the type of work I was doing, and that hopefully that was going to keep pushing me forward. So coming into the program as an illustrator and designer, one big change that started to happen for me was that I started to make more interactive work. I kind of have this analytical chunk to my brain. My dad was like an astrophysics, mathematics guy, and a lot of that skipped a generation, but I did get little bits of it. So I like to organize information and give people a way to interact with it in an organized way. And so this is about the female rapper MIA. She's famous for the song Paper Planes from Slumdog Millionaire, if you're familiar with that. But she gets influences from all over the world, and so this map, if you click on it, you can see what influences came from different continents in the world, and you can play samples of music and such. So this was one of my first really interactive pieces, and I really fell in love with doing this type of work. You could also peruse it as a timeline. So again, like, I love, taking all these bits of information and organizing them and letting the viewer decide how they want to go through the information as well. This was a digital short story where I retold the book of Ruth from the Hebrew Bible in a digital format designed for an iPad. It's actually an app. And this was, again, pushing myself into do a little more of the digital interactive type work. It was nice because I was able to write a fairly, it's a short story, but it was like a 23-page script and illustrate it and add my artwork to it in a creative way, but still organize it and make it, start thinking about the user interaction and user interface and how other people were going to approach the work in a digital format. And then taking it even a step further, this is a project where I mapped the Southeast Asian sculpture section of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So again, I created an app, and this one is even taking the interactive stuff a little farther, where you can hover over a map of this section of the Met, and you can see which postures of the women and the female sculptures occur where in the museum. You can also peruse it by the groups of postures and see where they are in the museum. And there's also, again, a timeline. I really like doing timelines, obviously, so you can hover over the timeline and see which postures occur when. And there's also a section with animation. So the motion that I love, like the movement of bodies, also plays into this. So these are the animations. Just showing a little bit, but I still really like, these are really beautiful statues, so just showing that little bit of movement was a lot of fun. Last year, I started to, again, this is pushing forward with the mixed media and multimedia thing. This was a campaign I did based on the character Lisbeth Salander from The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It's a trilogy by Stieg Larsson. And specifically, when Rooney Mara played her in David Fincher's American version of this story, I just thought it was a brilliant portrayal of this character. And this was pushing me kind of into the photo illustration world, which you'll see in my thesis. It really came to the forefront. But this was kind of based on typography and using typography to communicate something about this character. And so this was a poster, and this was also a poster that I did with computer code, kind of using that in a playful way to tell her story. And then the next thing I did was an animation based on that poster, and this was a very pivotal moment for me because I loved making this, and I put music into it, which was super exciting for me because, again, I love music. And I realized that I kind of had some kind of a sense of timing and how to match images and music and sound together, and I just had a blast making it, so that told me a lot about my future as an artist, so this is it.
Head bone connected to the neck bone, neck bone connected to the arm bone connected to the hand bone connected to the internet, connected to the Google, connected to the government.
So that's that. Also, coming back to the things I love, that's a song by MIA. So I was really starting to learn to lean into the things I was really passionate about, and use them to have fun making the work and really bring the passion out on the projects. So this was, again, more photo illustration started to come into my work, which I've really enjoyed. And so this is a accordion book that kind of is 10 by 10 and then stretches out to 10 different panels, and it journals my walk from the Lower East Side to the studios in Chelsea. So I just basically took a bunch of photos, and I also found quotes about the neighborhoods, and it's just chronicles things that I see, and I don't really shy away from color, so I wanted to put a lot of kind of neon-y colors in there to differentiate the neighborhoods from each other. And this brings me to my thesis. So speaking of the photo illustration and starting to kind of use photo and video, my thesis ended up being a multimedia graphic novel called Landfall. And to give a summary of the story, it's basically a woman who's a paramedic, which I used to be. That's where my past is kind of coming into my work. A paramedic, she's very jaded, she's very emotionally shut off from the world and we learn that it's because of losing someone close to her fairly recently, crosses paths with a woman who is a young and not a very good gang member. She's not really cut out for it, but she feels like she has nowhere else to go. So they cross paths, and the story is about their relationship and whether or not they can help change each other's lives for the better, and whether there's some risk involved in that, and so are they willing to take the risk to improve each other's lives and help each other out. So initially this was going to be a mix of live action video and drawn characters, but somewhere along the line I decided that if I was going to cast roles for the video, I really liked the idea of casting live people, all the roles, and having people actually play the characters in each panel of what would be the graphic novel parts. And so the entire thing is a mix of this, which is graphic novel style photo illustration, and live action video. And the video was super fun for me because I really admire a lot of directors. Film directors are some of my favorite visual narrative artists, and I wanted to learn everything about this storytelling in that respect, from idea inception all the way through to post-production editing and such. And so this is a sample of some of the video that shows how I married the video and the photo illustration together. This is the introduction video to my thesis.
Medical alarm 8-3, 8113 Oleander Avenue, cardiac arrest. Priority 1. Possible homicide. Medic 8, Engine 8. Medic 11, EMS Supervisor 1, due to respond. County Medic 8 is en route. Medic 8, copy you responding. Medic 8, respond to 8113 Oleander Avenue. Neighbor requested check on well-being. Police on scene reporting middle-aged female, found unresponsive. Injuries appear to be from choking or strangulation. Patient found by police with a scarf wrapped around her neck. Signs of struggle.
So this is the transition, obviously, from video to photo illustration, which a lot of the story is told in as well. And then it just goes to the chapter menu. But that's kind of, you know, she shifts from you seeing this deep portrayal of her in video into her kind of being frozen, and it's, you know, a metaphor for her emotional state. So that's the introductory video for that. Again, these are the samples of the graphic novel style work that went into it, and again, like we shot this, the still images were all done in photography, and so I was able to peruse. We must have taken just tens of thousands of photos, and going through and picking out the ones I liked it was arduous, but I really enjoyed it, and the actors just thrilled me. They're all local. I live in Galveston, Texas, and so the actors were all local to the Houston area, and Galveston is in the Houston area, and they worked for free. And I had a very small crew as well, and I paid the crew, but everybody, just for as small a cast as we had, just every day we shot, just showed up and brought as much as they could to it. And for me, and I know some of my classmates will talk about this, but I struggle my whole life with anxiety and depression, and I was having, ever since I moved to Texas a few years ago, I've had a really, really hard struggle with depression specifically, and it brought some trouble when thesis came around because the pressure and, you know, the insecurity and everything, and when I thought about drawing all these characters initially, instead of shooting them, I had to say to myself, like, I can't do this. Like, I can't sit by myself in my studio and draw all of these scenes out. It's something about it is just is not working out for me. And so the moment that I decided to cast all of the scenes with live actors, everything kind of fell into place. And the cast and crew just brought me back to life. Like, they just brought so much to their roles and so much emotion even to the still images. So I couldn't have asked for a better cast and crew. And that's another presentation, like the production of this was really interesting. And I can answer questions about that later, but I just wanted to give a shout out to them because they were super special to me. And we were all kind of became a little family, which was really nice. So these are some, just some more video clips to show you some of the video parts here.
Maya, hold up.
Yeah?
Don't let that jerk get to you.
I'm not.
Oh, well, it seemed like you were ticked off by him or something. He's just being a 20-something smartass.
Yeah, I know.
I thought you did a great job today. Maybe we can practice together sometime before the final on Friday?
Yeah,
Or, you know, if you're busy. I mean, we don't have to. It was just a thought. I just think you really know your stuff.
well, I study a lot.
That's good. Great, I mean.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, I just do whatever I gotta do.
Oh, well, I guess I'll talk to you in class on Wednesday. Maybe we can talk then?
Sure, but I study alone.
And this, I just want to show a little bit of this one as well. A lot of Maya's the main character here. A lot of her story, the video parts are really flashback scenes usually, and so they're styled a little bit differently, but this is just a small clip from one of the flashback scenes.
You can just scoot on out through the garage and enjoy the rest of your day. Don't you have some tests to be studying for yourself?
I do. I have my trauma test is scheduled for next week. Can you believe I am already about to finish medic school? Can you believe it?
I know. It's amazing, Maya. You're amazing. Okay, we'll talk about it later. Okay? Okay. Bye, girl. Bye, girl.
Who's that you had up in here, Ma? You know what it is, man? Nobody 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after.
No one was here, Ray.
Oh, really? Well, I saw her leave, Ma. And best cut the bullshit, because I ain't got no patience today. Said 30 minutes before.
And 30 minutes after. Jesus, I know.
So that's just a little clip of one of the flashback videos. And this last slide is the program that I built the story in, again, my analytical brain having a field day, because I could like build this entire spider's web of a story. So this is a little just behind the scenes shot to end on, everything color coded. It was super fun. So that is my presentation. I'm happy to take questions. I guess just one last thing I want to say about the program in general is, like I said in the beginning, you know, I went in one thing and came out really like a multimedia artist, writer, director, and did different things. And I think one of my favorite things about the program has been that it made it okay to not just be one thing. And I think a lot of my classmates can attest to that for us, that's kind of a good thing. So I'm very thankful for that I got to just kind of become whoever I was as an artist, even if it meant smashing a bunch of things together that don't necessarily go together, and just working with my own passions. So thank you for listening, and we can do questions for a little while, I guess. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, I can barely see someone. So he's asking about content of my stories and the types of stories I tell in relation to my 13-year-old self, I guess. I think that as far as content, I think one thing my mentor, Christina Russos, who's a director, said to me that resonated was that, you know, there's certain types of stories that she picks to work on because she is passionate about those topics, and she knows what she's looking for when she's looking to be involved in a project. And for me, that type of story, especially after working on my thesis, is stories usually that center around women. And with my thesis, when it was women's relationships with each other, and there's not a single really romantic relationship in my story. It's all platonic relationships, and I think that is a vastly overlooked, not just with women, with everybody in storytelling. It's just our platonic relationships with each other every day, not necessarily with like a romantic partner. I think there's so much there, especially among women, and in this story in Landfall, women looking up to each other, and like the mentorship relationship is really interesting, and what happens when that relationship fails, and when your mentor fails you, and also when your mentor helps you and helps make you successful. That's a really interesting topic to me. So just women's relationships with each other in a platonic sense. And also, again, like diversity is a very big thing with me. 80% of my cast was racial and ethnic minorities, and that was a very deliberate decision. And if the cast and crew together, I think, wait, let me think. It was 80% female cast. And then if you think the cast and crew together is 90% racial and ethnic minorities. So and again, those two are very deliberate decisions. And so seeing stories where you see various representations of women and minorities in different roles, and not just in the tropes and stereotypes that tend to get flung at certain types of people. I think just seeing a variety and what happens when you cast all minorities in a story, and it's just a story. It's not a story about race necessarily. I think we need to see a lot more of that. So I'm really drawn to that, and I think that directly comes from my childhood. I grew up, and obviously with the hip hop culture, is very diverse and open, and I think that filters into my work. But also, I grew up in a planned community called Columbia, Maryland, and it was planned to be very racially, socioeconomically diverse, and that was like beaten into our brains as children, which was great, and that I've carried with me all the time, and is at the forefront of everything I do. Yeah, looking forward, I really loved directing, but I also, if somebody asked me what I wanted to be when I grow up, which I'm still not really sure, I would probably say like a showrunner. because one of the greatest things I learned from the program and from thesis is like I said in my presentation, I love everything from the idea inception all the way through to the tiny little keyframe movement editing that happens, you know, in Premiere and After Effects in the editing room afterwards. I love all of it. And I would really someday like to, I would like to start directing more projects first, but then someday I would really love to have my own, like Orange is the New Black or Breaking Bad. And so that's like my pie in the sky right now. I had none. The scene you saw with the two women in the parking lot was the first thing I ever edited in my life. I did it in iMovie, which actually I did a lot of my editing in iMovie. It's a really good program. But yeah, I had none. And we had taken Matt Roda's analog to digital class in this program, and I learned the very basics of After Effects, and from that I kind of pieced together like how to use Premiere a little bit, and did some of my editing in After Effects because that's just what I was familiar with. But it was like trial by fire, and it was fun. It was just, yeah, I learned by doing, and so yeah, and none. But I love it now, you know, even though it was hard. Like, I knew pretty quickly it was something I liked doing.